Hello, everyone. This is Jimmy Hitchcock, the Jimmy Hitchcock podcast called Post, Poast, TRT, The Real Truth. Long name, I know, but I like it. And I'm going to use it as a brand. And what we're going to do is use it in our plan of action. I'm not going to talk about a lot of things. And I'm just going to put forth a plan. And you're like, this dude is arrogant enough to put a plan out there for the Black community. I'm not really arrogant at all, but I do think that someone should put something out there, something that some people can talk about and actually discuss and put into the ether so that we can figure it out together. I don't have an ego, so when I put out the plan, I definitely want people to chime in and give some thoughts and I'll change the things that need to be changed, and we'll move on to bigger and better things. But I would like to put forth a plan, and I would like for people to read it. But that's not what I came here to talk about today. What I came here to talk about is something that I actually went through, something very spiritual. And I'll start by saying this. I've been on like the spiritual journey since I was a child. Probably about 11 years old is when I really was about God and trying to find out who he was or who he is. And what I really wanted to do was find a direct connection with God. So I went out on my journey, obviously, and I got saved. And over my lifetime, I've been saved or baptized almost 3 times. And you probably ask, well, you don't have to do that because you do it. You can only, you do it once and you're good. Well, yeah, I agree. That's what the doctrine says. But for myself, I felt like once I was off the beaten path that I should come back and baptize myself back in and do those things to actually make it to where I feel like I'm cleansed of sin and trying again, basically. But the doctrine of Christianity as it's taught currently or by some or how I learned it, it just didn't sit well with me. So I know that religion is some things that people shouldn't want to get into and they don't want to talk about. But I really, really, really wanted to know, and I've had this yearning and this desire to figure out who and what we were worshiping, or what our religious philosophy or spiritual philosophy was before we were captured and brought to America. So that was my aim, and that was my goal. And some things happened to me on my journey in the last couple of years that I want to share with you that, you probably will think that I'm nuts. And sometimes, like, especially with football players, we, if we say something that's out of line or out of character, or you show some type of emotion, or you show something that's out of character per se, people will automatically say, this dude got CTE. So it's really for that reason that I didn't come out and say the things that I'm going to tell you today, that I didn't say anything to anybody once I went through this situation that I went through. And actually, this is the reason why I started the podcast, is because I wanted to talk about this specific thing. And I'll make, it's, early in the podcast, and if you're probably, a lot of people don't even, I saw in my studio, the back room studio that tells you all the analytics that people don't listen past 3 minutes, So I'm going to tell you what it is right now, which is that I saw 2 beings, and it was really just one of the most scary situations I ever been through in my life. But it was just so ridiculously revelatory, and it pulled me into a place where I just was on a serious spiritual journey to try to find out what happened to me. Okay, so what happened to me? Okay, I was doing this meditation, and I saw two beings, and as I was approaching the beings, the person the whatever in the front had a staff or a rod that kind of looked like a scepter, and there was a skull on top of the scepter. And as I approached him, he waved his scepter twice, and two skulls came out and was coming towards me, right? But I realized as they got closer and closer that they were digital. And as they got closer, they disappeared. And as I looked back at this entity, I came out of my meditation. As I came out of my meditation, there was like Egyptian hieroglyphs going up, like code up my face. Like my eyes, all I could see is hieroglyphs. I couldn't see anything else. I was sitting at the edge of my bed at this point because I had come out of my meditation, and I was sitting up on my bed, and all I could see was these hieroglyphs going up, right? I know people probably like, you crazy, but this is exactly what I saw. There's no other way that I can actually put it. It's something that just happened to me. And I didn't ask for it. Well, maybe I did ask for it, but I didn't expect it, or I didn't understand what it was at the time. And I'm going to back up to actually take you through the process of how I think I understand now why it happened the way it happened. All right. So I went out on a spiritual journey, and my spiritual journey would include me researching just the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is what they call a piezoelectric neuroendocrine transducer. All right. So what does that mean? All right. Piezoelectric basically means push to start, push to spark, push to gain an electric charge. All right. So push or pull, any type of mechanism that does anything to create a spark would be considered piezo in this case, or piezoelectric. All right. Neuroendocrine means fluid, organs, and in this case, it means fluid in the spine. Right. So in transducer, we all know what a transducer is. Even if you haven't heard of the word, it happens with your computers, your phones, your television, your radio. A transducer picks up an electromagnetic frequency, and then it turns that electromagnetic frequency into sound or clear image or writing or whatever. So that's what the function of a pineal gland is. Now, how does it do that? The pineal gland is deep in the back of the brain, and it's right at the center. And what it has on it is like silica type hair or crystals that's on the, well, I guess organ shaped like a phallus. All right. So again, has a small set of silica with crystals on it and is shaped like a phallus. Right. And what it does is, to me, is it is a compass to the spirit. Think thing that helps you guide or tap into your extraordinary spiritual powers, right? That's what I think about it. When I was studying and I was researching, I always had this fascination with Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein was, some people might know the story, but what happened to Albert Einstein is he was traveling on a train in Switzerland. And as he was thinking of the theory of relativity, he was on a train and he was going at regular speed, but he then imagined himself traveling at the speed of light, right? And there was a clock tower there in Switzerland, the famous clock tower in Switzerland. He was traveling at the speed of light, and what he did was he started to in his mind's eye imagine that what would happen if he was traveling at the speed of light. And as it went faster and faster and faster, in his mind, the clock tower started to slow down and got slower and slower, became slower and slower. The time did become slower and slower. So that's the only thing that I was kind of fascinated with about him. And the other thing that fascinated me about Einstein was that he was a physicist, but first he was a patent lawyer, and he was a patent lawyer all the way into his 40s. And, they've already come to the conclusion that the cognitive decline happens in the late 30s. So he picked up his cognitive abilities around his 40s, and that's when he started actually coming into his own, is around his late 40s. So because of my issue that I thought I had, which was CTE at one point, I started to try to unlock or tap into what Einstein tapped into. I know it's kind of sounds silly, sounds stupid and funny, but that's my mentality. Anybody knows me, the stuff that I'm telling you now, I don't care what people think. So, but this is what I set out to do, is find these things out. Like, I find God and find out how Einstein did what he did, So after thinking about it, I quickly kind of deduced that he tapped into his pineal gland, because I had been thinking about trying to tap into my pineal gland since I heard of it. And I heard of it in college at about my 20s, early 20s. I never really kind of tried to practice in unlocking my pineal gland until, and just recently. I tried a couple of times the meditation, but meditation is kind of boring, and I start, my mindset is one that I got a lot on my mind, so I start wandering in my thoughts, and it just wasn't something that was very conducive to gathering, information or getting like a spiritual charge. I mean, because just you got to lay down and meditate. It's kind of boring, right? So, but I did it anyway, right? So when I was just on a spiritual journey, I started trying to tap into my pineal gland, right? So I started a practice that I created on my own, right? I didn't know much about it. I looked up some things, and a lot of the people that's talking about the pineal gland online or on YouTube, it just don't seem genuine. It seems disingenuous, and it just wasn't something that I thought that they really tapped into, because they never talked about the results of what you do when you tap into the pineal gland. I never heard anything on the result side, So I'm going to tell you what my results were when I tapped into my pineal gland. All right. So I started on the journey, and I started in a meditative state. And what I would do every day for about 30, 40 days is I would lay on my bed. I would cross my arms, put my hands on my shoulders like this to try to center. I've heard, of course, through some of the top yogis, that you cross your legs or cross your arms, and maybe put your hands a particular way, or whatever type of ways that you put your hands. and that you can actually center your energy that way. So I would cross my arms like this. And where I got that from was, you guessed it, the Panther, Black Panther, right? So because of that, I thought that, because they had some good history in the Black Panther, I thought that, I would use this little cross thing to 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 center my energy. And it worked. It was crazy, but it worked. So what I would do is I would lay on my bed, cross my arms on my shoulders. Put my hands on my shoulders in a cross, and I would breathe in at 9 seconds and hold, and blow out at 6 seconds. I don't know where I got it from, but it's just something I was just experimenting with. So I'd go 9 in a deep breath, and we'll hold and blow it out for 6 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A little slower than that, but you get the point. So breathe deep, blow out. So I did this for about 30 straight days, all right, and nothing. I wasn't getting anything. But when I closed my eyes, I would see like these lights, right? I'd see all these things that were just going back and forth. So I'd see these lights. So in about the 37th day, I could start seeing something that looked like the stars. Like I was in the universe. Like I started looking like that I was entering into space, right? I know it sounds crazy, but I'm just being real. Like I'm being 100, like real. So it looks like I'm starting to enter space, right? So the next day I see if it can happen again. Of course, it happens again. Well, it happens again. The next day I do it again, happens again. And every single day it's getting clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer till I know for a fact that I'm in the stars, right? So it just kept getting better and better and better. And it's almost like I was in this vehicle traveling through space. But it was just me in a meditative state. And it felt like an out-of-body experience that it's just like my brain or whatever, my spirit just completely left my body. And at first I thought, well, maybe I had a heart attack or something and then came back or something like that. But anyway, so as I'm like the 36th, 37th day, I'm in the universe. I'm traveling through, like I had done days before, the days prior. So I get closer and closer to what looks like this planet, right? And I'm going through the atmosphere. And once I get through the atmosphere, I see two beings standing there. One is just a guy dressed in an Egyptian garb. It was all black Egyptian garb with the black headdress on. He was dark black. He almost looked gray. And the guy standing behind him was about 11, 12 feet, standing 11, 12 feet tall. And he was dark too and looked kind of gray. Behind them was like this system of, I don't know, highways that was off in the sky. And I just kept looking around, and as I got closer and closer and closer and closer to these beings, just like I said, he had a scepter and he threw two skulls right at me. And as they came to me, they just like disappeared. So that's what happened to me. Now, so after this, I started thinking I had CTE, right? So I just got away from what I was doing, And I was really just getting ready to prepare myself for this cognitive decline, because I was just waiting on, okay, dude, you got CTE. Like, what are you going to do? And just with the reason why I'm kind of adamant about telling you this now is because I just saw the diagnosis of Brett Favre, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And of course, people that played football, some of them have died from Parkinson's, and it's like a death sentence. So, and then I started thinking about my homeboy who has CTE, and he's, been diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder combined, and he had a serious situation, that landed him in jail. I love this guy. This is like one of my road dogs. So just, and I just talked to him last weekend, and I just started contemplating, do I share this, and I think it is time for me to share what I'm, about to tell you. Right. So what was it? What was it? What I think, what was the message? What was going on there? After taking months off and preparing myself for this cognitive decline, it was about, I thought I took like 2 years off or something like that. But after I look back at the pictures, it was just months that I took off before I restarted or started up again. Because at the time I said, okay, what are the things that I need to do to get myself connected spiritually to God? And one of the things that I said I was going to do is get myself in shape. Another thing I said I was going to do is I was going to get myself to where my body is alkaline, and that my body is at the best state it can possibly be in, to where I can feel that connection. Because if it was a connection, it was going to be an energetic connection. That's what I knew automatically, that it would be an energetic connection, that the connection would come through an energy source of some sort, right? So if there's a connection, it has to be through energy. Why? Because we produce like 90 watts of power just sitting at rest. If we just sit here and then go to sleep, in one day's time, you produce 90 watts or joules of power, right? And scaled up, I figured, and I studied the earth, and to see how much, and I'm gonna deviate for a second. I'll come back to what I was talking about before, but I'm gonna deviate for a second. Studying what I talked about before was that, our spiritual connection with God comes through the universe, because we are a lot like the universe. So I was thinking energy was the first and foremost thing, that it has to be, that connection with God has to start there. Because if there is a God, there has to be an eternal energy, right? There has to be an eternal energy that connects us to God. So what I was doing was getting my body prepared to produce the most energy they possibly produce a day. But at rest, they say that the human body produces 90 joules and 90 watts per day. And then the earth produces about 1,296,000 joules or watts per day, right? Scaled down, it's about 1-to-1 ratio, that the earth, and being like me as a human being compared to the earth, if you scale it up, it's a 9 and a 9, right? So basically, that's the way I wanted to pursue this, right? So what did I get? What did I glean from that? All right. I started thinking more about how we were set up, how much our bodies and how much our whole system is set up just like the universe. Like the veins in our arms, in our blood system, our circulatory system is like rivers and streams, right? The skin is like the earth, right? We have hair like the trees and the grass. We have our brain has like 90 billion cells, which is an astronomical number, but the more crazy astronomical number is with the microbial cells in the gut, which is 90 trillion, right? 80 to 90 trillion microbial cells in the gut. So that's even more astronomical. So what is that akin to? The brain and the gut, which I think the gut is the brain, is very similar to space, right? The Dogon, who's a tribe in Africa, was one of the tribes that go back to the beginning of time or beginning of man. The Dogon says, which in the Dogon, I'm gonna deviate a little bit more. The Dogon has, when they were found, when people discovered the Dogon, they fled Egypt and went to the area around Mali. When they fled that area, when they supposedly found the Dogon, they had no record ever in the history of their tribe of any theft or any murders. Okay. And they traced the history back to Egypt. They traced their history back to Egypt. And at the time, the Dogon had already spotted constellations and stars in the sky that so-called man hadn't discovered. Right? So the Dogon says that the universe or space is infinite but measurable, right? So this Dogon says this infinite but measurable. Same thing with the gut. 90 trillion, okay, we can measure it, and then 90 billion cells in the brain. It's infinite but measurable, right? So those are very close connections that we have with the earth, right? So that's how I started to think of everything. And then I started to delve into it a little bit more. And I came to the conclusion that what our real spirituality was before they started printing books for religion, it was more like a natural or nature-based astrotheology. And what is that? We'll get into that more later. But let's go back to the pineal gland. So the pineal gland acts as, to me, a compass of the spirit. And how does it work? Well, piezoelectric means to push to start. So you're breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. And people think that you breathe with your stomach in and out, but your lungs are up here, right? Or in your back, high in your back. So what you breathe up and breathe down. You breathe up and you breathe down, up and down. That's how you're supposed to breathe. You don't breathe in and out with your gut. Like, that's not how you breathe. If you're an athlete and you've been in a situation where you had to put your hands on your knees, right? And because you're just spent, you're tired, super tired, right? What you do is put your hands on your knees and you breathe down like that. And the coach will tell you, stand up so you can breathe, right? Because your lungs requires you to breathe up. In, when you breathe in, you're breathing up and you release down. Your stomach should not move in and out. That's just my opinion. Okay. So the Dogon says that space is infinite but measurable. They also discovered Sirius B, or the star Sirius and Sirius B, and they say there's a Sirius C as well. But we haven't discovered Sirius C, but we discovered Sirius B in, I think, 1860 something, right? Or they discovered Sirius B in 1860 something. So the Dogon was so far ahead of astrologers and people to study the universe, it wasn't even funny. How did that happen, right? You have to ask yourself, how did it happen that these so-called primitive people was able to map the universe, draw pictures in their caves, draw a picture in, like they fled to the caves because of the colonization of Africa at the time. They just didn't want to be in the violence and be a part of the violence. So they were a peaceful tribe. Obviously, you haven't found any murders since the beginning of time. They said that they can't trace any since the beginning of the time, which I do believe. So they fled, and they fled to spaces where they couldn't be found. And they ended up in caves, which is very, very ironic, but they ended up in caves, and they drew on these caves, or some of them end up in caves. They had some huts and things like that, but people drew on these cave walls. They drew the solar system. Think about that for a second. Like, they drew planets, they drew Venus, they drew Sirius, they drew certain constellations in the sky. It was very, very, very like deep that happened, right? So they had knowledge of this. How did they get prior knowledge of this? How did they get prior knowledge, and what do you think that they got this information from? Well, they saw it, right? So that's what I'm going to say. They saw it. And how did they see it? The same way I saw it. All right. So, and it was through the pineal gland. And let me go back for a second to my meditation. So after meditating, and I took a break, I took some time off so that I could kind of collect my thoughts and have, some type of idea what I was going through. I got checked. I did not tell him about that. I did not tell him about my situation as far as what I saw and how I saw it and things like that. But I did get checked, and I got a clean bill of health per se, because we don't have a clean bill of health when you've been hitting your head for over 20, 25 years, playing from the time that you're a pee-wee all the way up to pros. You hit your head so many times, so you don't really get a total clean bill of health. But for who I am and what I've been through, it was a clean bill of health. So I took that as a positive and just started back pursuing my journey on connecting with God. So what I started doing after that was I first, I quit the whole diet thing and trying to get my body alkaline. I quit that, but I restarted, and I tried in a slower process because I lost 30 pounds in the prior process. So I thought that maybe affected it. Maybe it was a part of why I saw the beings, et cetera, et cetera. So I started the process over again. And when I started the process over again, I took a little bit more time, tweaked my diet a little bit to include a little bit more carbs, a little bit more fruit, and the result was pretty good. I got my body back close to where I wanted it back to. Right. So, but then I started my meditation again. Sure enough, I started my meditation. I go into my meditation. Boom. 2 days after starting, I see the stars again, and it's back to what it was. The only thing is that the difference is when I was doing, and what I would do, I would put frequency on, and I would play the frequency of 432 hertz while I was in meditation, right? So I would try like 999 hertz, 432 hertz, I would try anything with nines in it, right? And we'll talk about that later, why. So I would try anything with nines in it. So I would play that frequency while I was in meditation, and something was telling me, get up and like go to the darkest place that you could possibly go, right? And I was just getting images in my head, and prior to long ago when I was in college, when I was in my 20s, I studied some things on the Egyptian civilization, and what I found, and what I was always kind of like thinking about when I was younger, was why did they put those big eyes on those mummies? Why did they put those eyes on those mummies, and why would they stand them up? Like most of the sarcophagus were standing up, but when I was in my meditation, something was saying, go to the darkest place you can make, the darkest place that you can make yourself a dark space, right? No light, zero light. It's very, very, very difficult to make a situation where you have zero light. But at nighttime in the back of my closet, my closet is in my bathroom, in the back of my bathroom, so I can make a dark space easy. So I go in the back of my closet, and I start meditation standing up, and they would have some of the sarcophagus was like this, right? So I kind of found that weird, but I did what, I was ignorant enough to try it. Some people who were probably really steadfast Christians probably would have been like, oh, that's devilish, or that's some type of evil spirit that's making you go in the dark. Well, your doctrine says from the darkness comes the light. That's what the doctrine says. From the darkness comes the light. And I was thinking that, actually, from the darkness come the light. From the darkness come the light, right? So I would go into this space, and I was going to see if I can create the same effect that I saw in my brain in my meditation, can create it just with my eyes open. So I would keep my eyes wide open, and I would try to keep them as wide as possible and not blink. I know it sounds crazy, and I know it sounds like I got CTE, but this is what I did. And I'm just going to let you know exactly what happened. All right. So in the first 2 days, I'm good. Like, I'm still doing it. I don't see anything. I don't see any type of stars or anything like that. And I feel like I can't produce the universe in this type of way, that I have to do it the other way. On the third day that I was doing this practice, there started to be like this light that emanated from this side of my face, right? Which is true. And I can still do it today. I can go on right now. If I go into the back of my closet, into the darkest space that I can do, there's some light that's going to emanate from right here. It's an internal light, right? It's an internal light that people have. I have it, and I think that me exploring these things with a pure thought and a pure mind, set out to connect with what I call the divine or eternal energy, I think that I was successful at doing it. Now, I think that, and I'll talk about this more later on, about why I think the children of the slaves in America are pretty much the people that can access this light quicker. Everybody can access the light. I think everybody has an access to the eternal energy, but getting there quicker, and I'll talk about how you get there quicker in a later podcast. All right. But as I have this light emanating from the side of my face, first of all, it was like, I was like, what the heck is that? Like, it looked like an orb. It started a little small round light that shined, and then eventually it became this light that looked like it lit up the room on one side of my face. It looked like it just lit up this side, and then I compared them. I looked into some of the pictures of the astronauts going through space, and it's a very similar depiction. It's a depiction of kind of what I saw. It's like you see this light shining over here, and then the black space right in this area. I know it sounds crazy. I don't care what people think. You know what I'm saying? Well, I do kind of care because my daughters. I really, my sons, I don't care, but my daughters, I really care what they think. I hope they're not going to be too embarrassed of what I say, but I do want you to cut off. If you're watching it right now, you're one of my daughters, Jaden, Jasmine, and my twin girls, Savannah and Simone. Turn it off right now. All right, so turn it off right now because this is going to embarrass you even more. All right. So listening to the light. Talking about the sarcophagus, standing up, listening to what I'm feeling like I'm being told, which is go into the darkness, and from the darkness comes the light, and I'm hearing that, and then I have this whole thing that I see this light on this side of my face, and like I said, I thought it was CTE, and I talked to a friend of mine named Jomo Leggins about it too, like, is this CTE? And he said, it might be. You know what I'm saying? Jomo is like the most straightforward dude you ever want to meet in your life. But he's like, yeah, it might be. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, yeah, thanks, man. But yeah, so I had this light emanating from the side of my face, right? And I'm just going like, what in the world is this light on my face? Like, this is so absolutely absurd. Like, I know I went to search for God, but this is ridiculously crazy. So I got this light, right? And I'm thinking like, what do I do now? And as I'm saying, what do I do now? I get this massive erection, like this crazy out of the way erection. But before that, I see these lights coming about, and it's blue, green. Sometimes the light would shine over this side. It looked like an orb was floating over this side of my face, and then green would come from that side, and then it would combine to make another color, and it'd be orange and yellow, and then I found out later what it was, but then I would get this erection. Like, what the heck is going on with this situation? So, but like I said, I was ignorant enough to try it, and I found out that, hey, this is normal. Believe it or not, it's normal, right? And it's what happens when you tap into the pineal gland. So listen to this. When you tap into the pineal gland, normally the fluid that you're shooting up from your spine goes into the fourth ventricle, but when you're pushing it quickly, it goes to the third ventricle. When it goes to the third ventricle, it shoots this fluid right through your brain towards the pineal gland, and it makes the pineal gland expand and contract. The pineal gland is shaped like a phallus, right? So it mimics the phallus. So it's shaped like a phallus. And the crystals in the silica, they react, and they get an electromagnetic charge. And when they get electromagnetic charge, excuse my language, when they get that electromagnetic charge, the crystals expand and contract, right? So what was happening was I was mimicking what was happening with my pineal gland. So the crystals would expand and contract, and then the silica would spread out and gain as much electricity as it possibly could. And my body would itch in the beginning, and I didn't know why, but it was electricity that was flowing through my body. Right? So when that happens, what happens to the pineal gland is it squirts out this fluid that in the beginning, it's a fluid that calms you, and then it scales up to almost DMT. So the DMT, it's close to a compound or drug called DMT. You guys look that up. I'm gonna put some links in this header about these things, and you can look them up for yourself. You can tell me if you've had these experiences before. I can tell you that this is the spiritual age that's coming about. And it's not going to be stopped. Like this is the spiritual age. This is about what's coming up next in this spiritual age. And we're going to talk about what age we were in before the spiritual age about to happen. I can see it. I can see on some of these TikTok pages. I can see some of these people talking. I can see some of these things that's coming up, especially in my algorithm, is just about the truth, and it's about light. It's about revelation. It's about spirituality. These are the things that I'm starting to see. And I know that some people are experiencing some of the things that I'm experiencing, maybe different. Maybe your experiences are a little bit different, but I think that in some people's guts out there, they have these spiritual thoughts and these things that's like boiling inside of them that they need to get out. They need to say, I'm just one that's, I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And if you know me, I'm going to say what I'm going to say. Right. So these are the things that I'm going to talk about. But on the next couple of podcasts that I'm going to do, and I'm going to have these put out. And it took me a while to get to this. Right. And I've recorded this, a couple of times already, but one time I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And, I just think that in some ways I do care about what my daughters think. And I just have, I just don't want to embarrass them in a way that makes them feel ashamed. Everybody else, mom understands me. Mom understands me. So my sisters, they know I've been different all my life. So everybody will kind of have their thoughts about what I just said. But over the next couple of podcasts, I just got up here to say, it's about almost 10 o'clock. I just got up here to talk about this for a second and share this with you because of what I just said. It's time to start sharing. It's time for people to start telling the truth about what they're going through in their spirituality and talk about the new spiritual age that's coming about. And if you aren't on this new truthful spiritual train that's coming, and once I tell you over the next couple of days what I think that was, because when I talked about the piezoelectric neuroendocrine transducer, that's the pineal gland that's in the back of your brain, the push to start and get a spark in your brain, and expands and contracts, and it becomes your antenna. All right, it becomes an antenna that allows you to be able to decipher messages in multiple dimensions. Right? So that's what it is. But it took me a while to figure this out. And I'm going to show you something else that's, when you see this, you're going to say, maybe it's not so crazy. But I was doing some study and some research on these topics as I was about to do the podcast, and I came up on some things that you should see. And I'm going to put these things at the end of the podcast. I'm going to put some things, some links in this podcast that I think if you really want to study this, if you really want to go down this path with me, on the spiritual path with me, I'm gonna put that out there. I'm gonna put some things about the pineal gland in here. I'm gonna put some things about ancient Egypt out, in the bio, so you can look at the Dogons. And the thing about nature and astrotheology is it's a natural process that's within us, that we are connected to nature. We're connected to the divine energy. We're connected to the light.
This is an initiation. If Jesus says, if they say to you, who are you? Say, or where do you come from? You don't say California or London. You say, we, not I, we come from the light. We're talking about spiritual identity now, right? We all come from the same place, not different places. And that place is where the light originated in the beginning of time when God said, let there be light.
Jimmy Hitchcock, post TRT. Peace.